I wanted to take you to the Senate. Interesting Senate today as the senators discuss the budget. But there comes a time, you see, I've been doing a little bit of reflection over the last couple of days, even as I have had some off-air conversations with my team, my moderator in particular. I believe that there comes a time when every nation must pause, not to rest, but to reflect. It's not every time that you take a pause that you rest. Sometimes you pause to reflect, to ask hard questions, to look honestly at where we are, how we got here. How did Jamaica get to where it is? And I think most importantly, where are we going? Where are we going? And that is a time for us. That is the time for us. 6 months ago, we heard the call to choose Jamaica. And it was a powerful message. Powerful message. The Labour Party really captured the imagination of many people with such a call. And it was a kind of a reminder that our votes are not just about parties. They're about the destiny of the nation. And today I want to take that message further. I want us to build on this message. This Choose Jamaica message, it must resonate with the neighbor rights. I want to ask you not to just choose Jamaica. And here I want to speak to my friends in the diaspora. Commit to Jamaica. Don't just choose Jamaica. Commit to Jamaica. Because choosing is a moment. That moment was on September 3rd. Commitment is a lifetime. Don't only choose Jamaica. Commit to Jamaica. Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's be honest with ourselves. For too long, we have lived in cycles of hope and disappointment, cycles of progress and reversals. And every generation has been promised a better future. Yet too many of our young people are growing or grew up burdened And if we are to be truthful, past governments have failed them. There are youths on the streets today, some men running taxis, eking out a source of living. And they'll tell you that they could have done better. The system failed them, not out of malice, but out of inconsistency, short-sightedness, and at times a willingness to trade long-term stability for short-term comfort. But nations, like families, cannot prosper that way. And if households spends more than it earns year after year, eventually the walls begins to crack. The roof begins to leak, and one day the entire structure is at risk. The same is true of a country. Fiscal discipline is not just an economic concept. It is a moral responsibility. Don't just choose Jamaica. Commit to Jamaica. We have to promise the next generation that we will not mortgage their future to satisfy our present. We must not mortgage our future to satisfy our present. So I am using this opportunity out of my reflection. I'm calling for something greater than politics. I'm calling for a new Jamaica, a new Jamaica ethic, a quiet, steady, unshakable commitment to stability, to discipline, and to nation building. A commitment that lasts not for one election cycle, not for 5 years, but for at least 10 years of focused, deliberate, and responsible governance and citizenship. Because real transformation does not happen overnight. It happens when a people decide together that enough is enough. And you know, history teaches us, you have to call me back. History teaches us this. The nations that rose from hardship to strength did not do so by chance. The heights of great men, reached and kept, were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward through the night. The Neighbour Rights movement is a movement that commits to Jamaica. Having chosen Jamaica on September 3rd, you now need to commit to Jamaica. The nations that really succeed, you know, they did so by embracing sacrifice, by valuing stability, and by thinking beyond themselves. And what they did was they planted trees, and the shade from those trees, they may not sit under it. When you plant a tree, don't think that you will necessarily benefit from the fruit or the shade, but you plant it for your children. Let's do this for Jamaica. Let's build something here so powerful that we will leave a legacy for the generation that is following us. That's how I feel about this work that we're doing. This is the mindset that I want my listeners to adopt. A patriotic, nationalistic mindset that commits to building your country. And this transcends the politics. It's about Jamaica, about the idea that we are stewards of something bigger than ourselves, that the decisions we make today will echo in the lives of our children and the children that are yet unborn. So I ask you, every listener, every citizen, what kind of country do you want to leave behind? What kind of country do you want to leave behind? One that is trapped in the same cycles, or one that finally breaks free? Because patriotism is not waving a flag, you know. Patriotism is not waving a flag or singing the national anthem. Before God and all mankind, I pledge the love and loyalty of my heart, the strength and vigor of my body. In the service of my fellow citizens, I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and truth, to work diligently and creatively, to think generously and honestly, so that Jamaica may, under God, increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. When they teach that to the children in school, they don't teach it for them to be patriotic enough. They teach them like a poem to be recited, and the picnic them just run through it, but they don't develop the patriotism to commit to their country. And I think that we here, the Neighbourite family, must build a powerful network. We're not only hosting a show. We want to build something that commits to leaving Jamaica in a better place than we found it. And I ask you to sign up. Sign up and join the Neighbourite family. We are moving this from being a simple podcast or a show to a movement, a progressive movement that will shake the foundations of this nation. We can do it. My people overseas in the diaspora can talk to you. You chose Jamaica on September 3rd. That's a moment. But when you commit to something, that's at a different level. You choose a girl, then you marry her. That's commitment. And I want every Neighbourite to commit to Jamaica. Patriotism is not just waving a flag. It's discipline. It's responsibility. It is choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Again and again, even when no one is watching. And this country must reject the temptation for quick fixes. We must reject empty promises. And we must reward responsibility. And when we say that the government of wholeness must continue to govern, it's because they have been a responsible government that's been patriotic, that's choosing country over party. That's holding your leaders accountable. That's holding them to a higher standard. We, the neighborites, we can be the opposition. Because we must believe that Jamaica is worth the effort. Because it is. And yes, so we're born. Some of us don't have no visa. And some of us will have to come back home. We have to build this land. We have to preserve it. And this country must never be placed back in the hands of irresponsible people who mar lives and generations for decades. You are responsible to make sure it don't happen. You are a neighborite. Don't just be a listener, be an activist. And we'll tell you how you can help as we build this, transitioning it from a show to a movement. We are not a people without strength. We are not a nation without potential. What we have lacked is not ability. What we have lacked is alignment. I want to repeat that for you to understand it. This here piece of rock called Jamaica is one of the greatest countries in the world. There is no piece of land our size that is more recognized in the world than we are. None. This is one of the greatest little country in the world. We don't lack strength. You know, Israel is about twice the size of Jamaica. And they have one of the most powerful military in the world. Yes, they're backed by America. But Israel's intelligence surpassed that of some of the largest countries in the world, twice the size of Jamaica. Singapore is the size of St. James. More than 6 million people live there. It was a little sand spit. Most of the land there is repossessed land. They have a higher GDP than that of the United States. This can be the greatest country in the world. You know, one man told me one time that we are akin to the Garden of Eden. How blessed we are. We have not lacked strength. Bob Marley came from Jamaica. reggae music, Usain Bolt, Shelley and Fraser, Price. We're not a nation without potential. What we have lacked is not ability. We've lacked alignment. The country was misaligned. PJ Patterson. PJ Patterson was not a good mechanic. But we will say more on that. We haven't lacked talent. We have lacked discipline. That must change. That must change. And it must change now. That must change. And it must change now. No more foolishness. So my call to you, to me, to all of us, is to rise above the noise, to think beyond the moment, and we must commit to a stable path. Fiscally, we must reject absurdities, financial absurdities. The central bank is an independent bank. How can a government suggest in parliament that they're going to go into the central bank for $1 billion? Morally, socially, and for the next decade. Not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. All of you females listening to me, you have babies? It's not easy to have a baby. It's painful, but it is necessary. And so you go through the pain so that you can have the joy of that bubbly little one growing up in your house. Not easy, you know. And you know say it's painful, but yet still you commit your body to the pain, excruciating pain, so that you can have the joy of saying, I am a mother. To hear that little one says, Mommy. Not because it benefits us today, but because it will save us tomorrow. There has been too many damn nonsense taking place in this country, and it must stop. Neighbor rights, if you stop too much nonsense talk, too much irrational thought, let's be pragmatic and rational. Choose Jamaica, yes. You made that choice on September 3rd. Move now beyond choosing Jamaica. And let's now talk about committing to Jamaica. That's the next step. A commitment that having chosen Jamaica, you will ensure that what you have chosen is preserved. Build Jamaica. Because you choose it. So build it. Protect Jamaica. Because you choose it. Protect it. Commit to Jamaica because you choose it. You can't leave it now. You've chosen Jamaica on September 3. Build it. Protect it. Commit to it. Transition now from choosing Jamaica. Don't say that anymore. Don't say we choose Jamaica anymore. Say, I am committing myself. Having made the choice, I now commit to protect that which I have chosen. And you do it for yourself. You do it for your children. And you do it for generations yet to come. You know, my son sent me a message before I came on air. Say, hey, my dad. Hey, my dad. Just getting some shows out of the way. I come see you soon. Melts my heart. Feels like I would cry. When I am gone, he will have to live here. The commitment you make to Jamaica is for your children, for your grandchildren. The future is not something we inherit. The future is something you create. And the time to create it is now. So all of you listening to me in the diaspora, you're not here in Jamaica, but at your yard. And you must not just be a supplier of financial resources. Those financial resources you're sending back home, put a commitment to it. Put a plan to it. Let your family know. Don't waste your money. Don't just take it and fool around. And tell them. Yes, in no uncertain term, that they must choose Jamaica. And they must commit to Jamaica. Because there comes a time in the life of every nation when you must pause. And I think Jamaica is there now. We need to take a break and ask ourselves some hard questions and look at where we are and how we got here. And where is it that we are going? Time come for some hard questions. Because we have lived the cycles for too long. We have lived the cycles of hope, the cycles of disappointments. 2 steps forward, 2 steps backward. Progress sometimes, reversals next. And every generation has been promised a better future. And for the first time in my lifetime, I was a great admirer of Eddie Siaga, you know, because of his concept of life. Mr. Siaga had a concept of from the womb to the tomb. You have studied Erik Erikson, Stages of Development. Mr. Seaga was a bit of a sociologist, you know. Mr. Seaga believed in human development. But human development is not something that is abstract, you know. You know, they have stages of development. Did you know that you have oral? Well, let me not but there are stages of development. You develop from you're born and you graduate at each stage until you are at the grave. Mr. Seaga. And you know, I've said this and I'm going to say it again. One of the worst mistakes Jamaica made was when they did not re-elect Edward Seaga in 1989. It is the worst mistake that this country made. Had Mr. Seaga been, you know, they said hindsight is 2020, so had Mr. Seaga been re-elected in 1989, probably I would not be here talking to you. This country, Jamaica, would have been a boom. It would have been a boom country. Eddie Seaga would have transformed Jamaica. Because remember, my moderator has constantly said to me, speak about the history. What Seaga did in the 80s was to kind of realign the country for growth, for development. Me said, if the worst decision Jamaica make and then pay a price of 18 and a half years of slavery back in Jamaica, if Jamaica had just re-elected Eddie Seaga in 1989, Jamaica probably today would be a first world country. That man had it in him. All you talk about wholeness, you look at Seaga. And I know wholeness is a transformational leader. I know that. But Seaga was a brilliant statesman and a developer, an institution builder, and a man who would have transformed. And we swapped Mr. Seaga back for Manley and PJ Patterson for 3 terms. We must not make those mistakes again. We must not make those mistakes again. You see this man here that we have as Prime Minister? He must not be voted out. He must not be voted out of power. And that is not a statement about Labour Party, you know. That's how you choose your country. I'm not a strong believer in democracy, you know. I'm not a strong believer in that. I don't mind, because there are a lot of things that democracy prevents from happening. Because when you have, for example, in a democracy where governments can have states of emergency to save lives, and opposition can't go to court and win, well, then there's something to be looked at, man. Government must have authority to govern. Yes, and sometimes that authority means that the people have to give up some of their rights, because that is what is called the social contract theory, where you sublet or submit your rights to the greater good, to the greater good of the country. The next couple of elections must just be to reaffirm our commitment for stability stability in Jamaica. We can't grow if we're not stable. We can't change no government. That we don't need to change the government in the country. We're not even talk about PNP now. All PNP need to listen. PNP need to just stop being PNP and just easy for that. Yeah. I know you say it's foolishness you talk. Is a democracy. Well, look at what is happening in Barbados. 3 consecutive clean sweep, Mayor Motley. And if you listen to Mayor Motley, some of the policies that the Barbados Labour Party have implemented in Barbados came straight out of the Jamaica Labour Party manifesto. So what we're going to swap government for what? But why would we change the government? Why would we change the government if the government is performing well and doing well? Why you go change them? Because it's time for what that change. That is foolishness. We have lived in this cycle, even these 5-term election cycles. The government need more than 5 years. If a government is really going to fulfill its vision, you need more than 5 years. You can't do it in 5 years. Yes. What we need to do is have a recall system that if the government not performing, we get rid of them. But if the government is doing well, you keep the government in. We have to be reasonable, you know. The cycles of disappointment, progress, reversals. Every generation is promised a better future. Yet too many of our young people are growing up without that promised future. I'm calling for something new. Let's take a short break and come back with a little bit more. Let's take a short break and come back with a little more. Give me a few more minutes, moderator.
Our listeners, could you please tap the screen and share the live? Also, please remember to repost the live by pressing the white arrow, then the yellow circle. Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna do that again with you. Monday, please remember that we're going to be here tomorrow at 5 o'clock. We're going to be doing a special on champs. And we're going to have DJ Clean Cut Marley, or DJ Marley Clean Cut, turning up the party for us. Scratchy started this program with me 1 year ago. And I'm going to do something for Scratchy, you know. Scratchy, your neighbor is going to do something for you. Just give me a little time. It's not praying about it. Because you represent the best of Jamaica. But you said something on this program that I have thought about. You said the system failed you. You would have done better, you said, but the system failed you. My neighborhood family, We must make sure that Scratchy achieves his potential. And I'm going to make some suggestions. The system that failed him will be corrected, and Scratchy's life will take whatever you missed, Scratchy. Whatever you missed, you're going to get it. We're going to make sure that you achieve it, my brother. Let me take a break. I'm coming back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Hi. Harry?
Hello.
Good evening, Chops.
Hey, Caroline, how are you doing? Hi, Harry, how are you doing, man? Good job. Everything all right?
Harry, could you speak with Chops in the meantime, please?
Yeah, Caroline.
All right. All right. Just give me a few minutes, guys, please. I'm going to tell you a little story before I get to the guys online. Sociology, you see, teaches us something deep. That individuals do not rise or fall in isolation. They are carried. They are either lifted or they are limited. They are lifted by the system. You know, Adam Smith speaks of the poverty of aspiration. He's a criticized economist, but that statement is profound. You ever hear them say that a rising boat lifts all tide? That if they a rising tide lifts all boat? Some people have questions to answer in the country here, you know. Some of our leaders sitting down in their living room right now watching flat screen TV with helpers have questions to answer. Retired, living large, you have questions to answer. But when you're at the wheel or at the wicket, the decisions you made are affecting many Jamaicans alive today. You know, in the gospel, There's a moment that I will highlight, and I will try to do it as brief as I can. I can be long-winded, but bear with me. A widow is walking, weeping. And the Bible says that as she's walking and weeping, she's been followed by the body of her son, her only son. They are carrying the boy to be buried. I want you to understand the weight of this. This is where theology meets with sociology and philosophy and psychology for practicality. The Bible is not a book that takes you to heaven. The Bible is a book that prepares you to live on earth. Many pastors and preachers use the Bible to point people to heaven. No. Use the Bible to show people how to live on earth. I want you to understand the weight of this. Because in that time, her son was not just her child. He was her future. Because in Israel, women don't work. So the boy is her provider, her security, her pension. Quite frankly, more than 2,000 years ago, when a widow loses her son, one of the options available to her was prostitution. You see the difficulty she's in. Without this boy, she does not just lose love, she loses livelihood. So she's not just grieving, she's been economically erased. The reason why people had children back then was posterity, generational posterity. And when a man married a woman more than 2,000 years ago, the woman was not his age. The man may be about 70, she may be about 16, 17. So the man always dies first or die first. Then Jesus arrives. And what does he do? He does not go first to the boy. He touches the bear. The bear is the thing that the dead boy laid on. The structure that was carrying the dead. And in that act, he interrupts the procession. Think about that. Because it tells us something powerful. And what it tells us is that sometimes the problem is not only the individual condition. It is the system carrying them towards an inevitable outcome. Because the bear represents structure. It represents structure. It represents momentum. A direction already set. And unless something intervenes, then the situation is hopeless. Because the destination is certain. Let's bring this back home before we go to Harry. When Scratchy says that the system failed me, he's speaking in essence about the bear. A structure that during and after FINSA left families strained, opportunities limited, and upward mobility constrained. When I left Homewood in 1993, I couldn't apply for a job anywhere in Jamaica. The minimum wage was $500. I felt hopeless. I remember the last day when I stood outside and tears fell down my eyes. As after 4 years, my mother struggled to make sure that I went to high school. I couldn't see any hope in my country. I couldn't find a work to say, I go and carry home a little money to give my mother. After 4 years, I felt so ashamed. I felt so ashamed. Not because individuals lack potential, but because the pathway was narrow. Narrow. A friend of mine owes $3 million in student loan right now. I could not get a student loan to go to the university. Who would guarantee it for me? And today, any child from anywhere in Jamaica can walk up into Kingston, go into the student loan, and once they qualify, they get that. And when enough young people feel that a nation begins to drift, when people feel that the nation is drifting slowly, quietly, towards a kind of burial, that's what was happening in the story. You know? They are taking the boy to bury him. No bodies of hope. Because if systems can carry people downward, then leadership must have the courage to interrupt the motion. And that's what Jesus did. He interrupted the motion. And that is where Andrew Holness, that's what Andrew Holness has done. You know, in Andrew Holness becomes the Jesus in this story that rescues the nation from being buried. To say the trajectory ends here. The downward movement ends here. The hopelessness ends here. You're not going to bury him because I don't know why it seems to be glitching. And in our time, interruption becomes real in governance. Because under Andrew Holness, there has been an attempt, imperfect, but intentional, to stop certain national trajectories. You stop the trajectory of murders. Stop it. You stop the trajectory of lawlessness. Stop it. You stop the trajectory of joblessness. Stop it. You stop the trajectory of poverty. Stop it. That's interruption. That's sociological. That's philosophical. That's theological. Stop it. Stop the slide. You stop the crushing debt. You stop economic instability. You stop the lack of confidence in the future. And to do that is not only to reach out to individuals, it is to reach out to structures And one of the reasons why wholeness is getting a bit of a, let's call it a fight, is the very reason Jesus was crucified. We're in the month of Lent. I don't want to preach it. But it's because he's an interrupter. And there are many people who benefit from the system. Because do you know that war benefits people? So is death. I wonder if you know that there are some businesses that thrive if enough people are being unalived in the country. It is not in the interest of some for murders to be down, unaliving to be down in Jamaica, because there are many people who benefit from a system. And they don't care. They don't care. Because once they are benefiting financially, the more bodies they pick up, the more money they make. The more burials they can have. Let me tell you this. I used to make money off funerals, not deliberately. But I've buried more people up at Dovecote than many people in Jamaica and Medaris. I used to go up to those cemeteries almost every week to bury people. And none of them died of natural causes. They were all, 90% of them were young men. I know the story, Interruption becomes real in governance. And so here is the truth. If you only address symptoms, you comfort the grieving. But if you touch the system, you restore the future. And this is why this moment matters so deeply. Because Jamaica, in many ways, has been that procession, carrying the weight of COVID, of economic shocks, of historical burdens like FINSA. And the danger is not just what we have lost, it is what we may yet lose if the procession was not interrupted. If the procession was not interrupted, the boy would have been buried. And that would be the end of the story. But here comes Jesus, and he interrupts the procession. And here we are telling that story. And so that story reminds us the procession is not final until it reaches the grave. And it only reaches the grave if no one stops it. So tonight the question is not political. It's philosophical. It's even spiritual. By the way, my friend at the Tarrant Baptist Church, I'm forgetting your name. I will speak to you one of these. Do we recognize when a nation is being carried in the wrong direction? Do we recognize that? And when we do we allow the interruption or do we resist it? Why are Jamaicans resisting this interruption? Why is Mark Goldie resisting the interruption? Because if the bear is touched, the systems are corrected, then something remarkable happens. The young boy did not get buried in hopelessness. Potential was restored. His future was restored. The boy rises, and the mother, the nation, is given back her future. That is the stakes. That is the moment. Not just to mourn what was lost, but to protect what can still be saved. And thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Someone intervened and interrupted the system and gave this country back hope. Someone intervened and interrupted the system, touched the beer. And tonight, Jamaica, in my area that I live, the police tell me only one unalive in 6 months. What a miracle. What a miracle. What a testimony. The system has been interrupted and hopelessness. And we are seeing before our very eyes transformation taking place in this country. Why should we change it? You can't tell me no argument that can defeat mine. This system has been interrupted. Yes. We were on our way to the grave, like that boy in the city of Nain, hopeless, and on our way to be buried. But thanks be to God, someone intervened, touched the beer, and restored hope to people. And today, 300,000 Jamaicans are working again. Almost 700 lives were spared last year. People are now feeling hopeful in their country again. Thanks be to God. For Andrew Holness is a mere servant, but he's the man that has been chosen to do it. And to do otherwise is to go against God. It will be to go against God, because this has to be divine intervention. God intervened and stopped the bleeding, stopped the murder, stopped the poverty, stop the joblessness, stop the crime, stop the hopelessness, and restore the boy back to his mother. And you go to the pole, go put your ink, put your finger against the head. For what?